Later this month, we will celebrate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Malcolm Little, also known as El-Haj Malik El-Shabazz or Malcolm X. The civil rights leader we lost too soon is the subject of a new book by my next guest, Dr. Ibram X. Kendi. Dr. Kendi, thank you for joining us.
Of course.
The book is called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers, and it comes out this Tuesday, May 13th. Why did you feel this was a book that needed to be written for a young generation today?
Well, there are a lot of people around the world who read the autobiography of Malcolm X when they were in high school or college or even older.
I was in elementary school when it came out. I remember reading.
Yeah, and it really transformed them. It allowed them to really see racism squarely. It allowed them to see how they can combat racism. So why can't our young people be learning about Brother Malcolm when they're in elementary school or even middle school and they become transformed then? That was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this book.
Now, you write about the one and only meeting between Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm in 1964. And America has sanitized King's legacy. Me coming out of the King movement, I feel they've sanitized it too much, but that's my opinion. But it still portrays Malcolm, who championed self-defense, as a militant, a scary one, contrasting Dr. King. I was 10 years old when Malcolm was assassinated. I was 12 or 13 when Martin was assassinated. But I grew up very close to their widows, Dr. Betty Shabazz and Coretta Scott King. Dr. Shabazz was the godmother of my two daughters. How does the book unpack some of the myths around around Malcolm's legacy?
Well, as a biographer, I wanted to tell the truth, the complicated and even complex truth, obviously in an age-appropriate way. And so I think young people learn that Malcolm was about self-defense. He wasn't this violent militant who was trying to raise armies. They find that he had an ideological evolution. After he came back from Mecca, he spoke about all people as being racially equal, and of course was really focused on elevating the struggle for civil rights to human rights. And so I show his story in all of its fullness.
Now, you worked with Malcolm X, stayed on this novel, and included some amazing primary sources such as pictures and letters that Malcolm typed out himself.
Yes.
They tell the story of his journey from ex-con to leader of a movement. What do you want young readers to take away from that?
That they can transform this world, that no matter what station that they're in. You know, Malcolm suffered his father being killed, his mother being taken away, detention homes, poverty, hunger, incarceration, but he still became one of the greatest American revolutionaries in history, transformed the world. We're still talking about him. So every young people, no matter who they are, where they are, they can still become somebody who's going to greatly influence this world.
My mother used to tell me his Mother's Day is not where you come from, it's where you're going.
Exactly.
Malcolm was 39 when he was killed, right as he was transforming his stances and ideology. What did we miss out on? What was lost if we never saw Malcolm at 40? We never saw Dr. King at 40. He got killed at 39. Medgar Evers at 39. But since you're focusing on this book, Malcolm at 39, what do you think we lost if Malcolm had lived to an older age?
Well, as you know, one of his last campaigns was to get the United States before the United States nations being charged with violating the human rights of African Americans. And the way he went about doing that was really trying to bring together the Black world, trying to ensure that African Americans and continental Africans saw themselves as one people who are commonly subjected to global white supremacy. He wasn't able to ultimately, achieve that, but if he lived, there could actually be more unity throughout the Black world, if he would have lived.
Now, I want to get your take on Trump's firing of congressional librarian, Dr. Carla Hayden, appointed by President Obama. She was the first woman, the first Black person, and the first librarian who did not get a lifetime appointment to run the Library of Congress. There was only 1 year left on her 10-year term, but conservatives recently accused her of pushing so-called radical children's books. As the author of a book for young adults, I'm sure many conservatives will object to. What are your thoughts about the way they've targeted books and education in their culture wars?
Well, it's to me one of the most tragic aspects of these last few years, the ways in which these people have taught to really remove books, remove history, remove knowledge, remove truth from our young people. What else should they be doing other than learning knowledge and truth and history? And so to me, as an educator, as a scholar, it's been deeply tragic.
You're one of the celebrated scholars, authors in the country. What is your next project after this?
Well, I'm trying to figure that out right now. But I'm really excited to celebrate, really, Malcolm's 100th birthday with Malcolm Lives. And I know that Malcolm is looking down on many of the fearless activists around the world, and it's certainly your fearlessness, as we continue to resist this administration and anyone who's trying to subject us.
One of the things that, as I said, I came out of a different school of thought, but getting to have a relationship with Dr. Betty Shabazz meant a lot to me. She spoke at National Action Network. That's her speaking at one of our Saturday morning rallies that I'm showing. And one of the things that she said is that she always wished that a broader audience saw what Malcolm was about. What do you want our white viewers to do and think about Malcolm, and young whites to read? Why is it important for everybody to understand what Malcolm X was about?
Well, as I mentioned, Malcolm died advocating for human rights. And he recognized that white people were human too. He recognized that white people too were being deprived of their rights. And particularly in this moment, it doesn't really matter whether you're black or white or Latino or Asian. Our civil liberties, our human rights are under attack by this administration. And so I think every white American, really every American who's serious about ensuring that we have a democracy and that we are all protected in our rights as human beings should recognize and really admire Malcolm X's courage and his fearlessness to speak to that.
The book is called Malcolm Lives, the official biography of Malcolm X for young readers. It is out on Tuesday. Many thanks to author Ibram X. Kendi.